Hello, this is Susan Bird, and you are listening to the Curated Conversations podcasts. In this series, East meets West and vice versa, we're exploring the new conversations taking place between Asia and the West on a variety of subjects. With me today is Luc Salvador, Executive Chairman and CEO of Capgemini Asia Pacific and the Middle East. The Capgemini Group is one of the world's foremost providers of consulting, technology, and outsourcing services. Luc joined the company in 1978 and really built his career there. In 2005, he was made a member of the Capgemini Group Executive Committee, having successfully led a merger that resulted in the Sageti Group, now a wholly owned subsidiary of Capgemini. In addition to his work in Asia and the Middle East, Luc is also the Group Executive Committee sponsor for defense activities in France. In 2013, the French chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff appointed him as National Coordinator of the French Cyber Defense Military Reserve. He's a graduate of the University College of the Witwatersrand, South Africa University, and also holds a degree from the French National Defense Academy. Among other awards, Luc was awarded the Legion of Honor, the highest distinction awarded by the French Republic. He speaks English and French, and it says that he's socially acceptable in Spanish, and is joining us today from Hong Kong. Welcome to Curated Conversations, Luc.
Good morning, Susan. I'm glad to be with you.
So when we talk about the conversations taking place between Asia and the West, what does that bring to mind for you? What does that mean?
Well, first, to be candid, I discovered Asia 3 years ago. I was more someone who lived in USA or in Africa or in Europe. I had a very low perception of Asia, and the first thing that strikes me in Asia is the word energy, the word youth, the word vibration, the word culture. It's amazing. It's a discovery every day. It's innovative in all dimensions, being business, being technology, being a cuisine. It's a fantastic place where to be.
So you've had a long history there. How has the dialogue shifted during that decade? Is the kind of conversation that takes place between Asia and the West one that is more informed? Do people understand each other better? Is there less mystery? What's your thinking about? How has it changed or moved?
I feel a bit shy, Susan, in front of this question because I'm not sure I can be considered as a recognized analyst of the dialogue between Asia and the world. But what strikes me first, we saw in the last 15 years the growth of number two, if not number one economy in the world, China. That's one of the facts that struck me, and it's in a way very inspiring to say I'm witnessing that. Second, we see this region and China again comes to the forefront, becoming the digital locomotive of the world. Everyone is fascinated, being what happens with Alibaba or lately with Tencent. There was a time where Asia, especially China, was a synonym with copying, absence of innovation. And today, 1 hour away from Hong Kong in Shenzhen, there is one of these capital of the world in innovation. So the exchange, if I may say, the dialogue, in my view, has changed in more the dialogue of peers and even the dialogue of learning. In other words, probably we Westerners had some kind of, were a bit derogatory about Asia, looking at those regions are in development and And today there are places where we can learn, and where they are themselves eager to learn. And that's not limited to China, but it's true in Singapore, in Indonesia, in Malaysia. It's and maybe that has to do with the youth. It's a very, very young region. I think the average is about 25 years or less. And so you can see that energy bubbling all over the place. And what is very interesting in Hong Kong itself is the blend of cultures. In Hong Kong, people speak French, Spanish, Italian, a lot of American are there, Canadian, Chinese from Hong Kong, Chinese from England. So point of contact. And when you contact people with different culture, you learn.
When you combine them, is that the word you used? When you combine them, you learn? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I imagine when you're in the West, people think you can explain all things Chinese and vice versa. How accurate is the Chinese understanding of the West?
First, it's always difficult to kind of build a generality of who the Chinese are and what they do. But I would say Chinese look at culture and look at time. In other words, they respect, they pay a premium for what they consider is old culture in the West and what has been built over time. In other words, if you come from a country where they don't regard culture as being a strong element of your country, then you're not very important. Which means that when you're French, for instance, you have that little advantage.
Let me interrupt you a second, Luc. I wasn't sure I got that last point. When you said that they look at culture and they look at time and respect the old culture that's been built over time. Did I hear that correctly? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
And
culture is important for them.
And then when you said when you come from a different culture, for France, for example, then I didn't hear the rest of that.
Okay, they recognize and they appreciate the fact that you come from a land where culture is important.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. So, how about the Western understanding of China? Is that a somewhat different thing? How do from your perspective, do Westerners understand the Chinese? Do they have that same sort of appreciation?
I think now it is a given in the West that China is a major global player. And I would say in a lot of dimensions, whether technology, whether business, whether culture, whether artists, and even in the military mind. So I think there is a reality there. Plus, the media are full of information like the multiplicity of millionaires, if not billionaires, coming from China. So they see things have happened there in China, and I think there is a more balanced look at China today, which does not, I would say, deny the fact that it's a different culture and then it's a bit mysterious, but there is a recognition of who China is.
So let's talk about what's on the mind of many people who have an interest in China, and that is the somewhat slowing of the Chinese economy. What's happening, and how is that impact being felt?
China is huge. I mean, it's so mundane to say. In other words, economy in China, what are we speaking about? If you go to the north of China, you see, for instance, regions which are in difficulty, even in decrease of economy. Then you go to some other regions, around Shanghai, for instance, or Beijing, where growth is still there above Those are the latest numbers. So the situation of the economy in China is very diverse. Point number two, there are segments where the growth is just amazing. Look at the situation of Tencent going IPO recently and being one of the biggest world capitalization today. Look at what Alibaba can do one day when they decide to go on a special manifestation on e-commerce. Look at what Huawei is doing, not only in market share, but in growing up the value chain. So overall, you see an economy which is in the growth around the 6%, plus or minus a few decimal points, which seems low considering the past. But this growth and the status of this economy is very different given the regions or given the segments you are looking at. And if I can make an overall comment, in my view, I'm not the only one to think so, it remains quite solid.
Quite solid. Uh-huh.
Solid, yeah, quite strong.
So what about individuals in China? We know that people born in the last 30 years have been living in a country where growth has been exponential. Has that shifted at all? Is the mood the same of enthusiastic optimism, or has that been somewhat subdued by what, despite the fact that it's still a very robust economy, is a less speedily growing one? Do you have any observations about that?
Well, first, my understanding of this aspect of the situation is biased by the fact that the young people I meet are the ones who are in the IT industry, which remains very active. So I have a tendency to meet a portion of the young population which is in a market which is still looking for resources, especially when you look at the internet skills, the specialties, and which is still I would say in a very positive mood, looking at the future with a lot of hopes and a lot of those young kids thinking of creating their startup. I don't know if you had the chance to go to a place like Shenzhen, for instance, which is becoming the cradle of a lot of those young startups. The mood is really smashing there. So that's the kind of young population I meet, and they are extremely positive. I'm not sure the whole population is like that, but that's the one I meet. Very positive. And
so we do know that people, however, are emigrating out of China. In fact, some say that China's brightest and wealthiest are leaving the country. That's not the mood that you hear about or see.
Not at all. I mean in the opposite. By the way, I hear a lot of these statements about a lot of countries. In France, people are leaving France. In UK, because of the Brexit, people are leaving UK. So I'm very, I would say, unless I see numbers, I'm very dubious with this kind of urban legend, if I may say. What I see, first of all, I have a tendency to look at the proportion of the population which is highly educated, often in the best schools in the US and in second rank in Europe. And we see Singapore as an education, as a place for the market for education rising. So education is there, very strong. And a lot of them coming back to China, feeling that at the end of the study, their future could be bright in China because of the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like the innovation that is really at the heart of what you're so positive about for those who remain in China. So it sounds like China has to maintain this level of innovation in order to solve the pressing issues that it does have, environmental pollution, healthcare, and so on. It sounds like you think there is no shortage of innovation there. Did the Chinese? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, just I want to agree with you on what is innovation. Often we hear by innovation, product innovation. For me, it's a bit wider than that. It's an idea, it could be a product, it's an invention, where you deploy it to the market and it creates value. Huh? In other words, I don't see customers buying valueless innovation. So then, when I look at innovation, as I was saying earlier, in the past, China would be synonym of copying things. You know? And by the way, one thing people don't always understand, in the Chinese culture, if I copy you, it means I have a lot of respect for you. The best way I manifest my respect is I copy. Of course, this can have some very negative impact for the companies or what is being copied. But basically, in the culture, copying does not have the same negative connotation. Now, China is beyond that. When I see the number of patents which have been developed, for instance, by Huawei in the last 3 or 4 years, when I was speaking about Shenzhen, I could speak about Shenzhen again, but not only. When I see what they've done in the equivalent of the GPS, what they do in the spatial, in aerospace, innovation is now in China. And by the way, they have no choice. They have no choice because of the growth of their wealth, they are becoming less and less competitive in the world of labor arbitrage. In other words, the factory in China that we knew 20 years ago that was sustaining its business model on the fact that the labor costs were cheap, but that does not exist anymore. We are now in the cash-intensive, investment-prone factory, highly automated or investing in automation. So innovation, and Xi Jinping has very clearly stated it recently, innovation is one of the imperatives that China is focusing on and must achieve. There is a race there worldwide, but China is definitely in it.
So Alibaba, Tencent, and others have really demonstrated that, according to you, certainly, that innovation is very much alive and thriving. Where will the increased innovation come from in China? Will it be, it's no longer just expats who bring in Western thinking, as I understand it. It will be more of the young, educated in the West who return and eventually lead companies there, or will it be more homegrown? Where do you see the real source of all this innovation that is already existent and will be needed even more?
First of all, I would say that the level of education in China is extremely high. So not only people get educated abroad, but what you see as a production of skills and education in China is at world level as well. So where will it come from? Clearly, the size of China speaks for itself. In other words, when you look at the number of young kids in China that learn how to play piano, I think the latest numbers were 64 million young kids are playing piano, are learning how to play piano. You have a strong chance to find the next Mozart in China, just by sheer size. So a lot of innovation will come from homegrown, but at the same time, you see all the Chinese people getting educated abroad, traveling, exchanging, so becoming more and more global and taking advantage of globality. But if you had asked me where are the fields, there are some very interesting fields, I think, which we're going to hear a lot. I think everything that has got to do with sustainability pollution, water treatment, urban capacity management. A lot of things will happen there because of the pressure. A lot will happen around the health, life sciences, and pharmaceutical because there have been so many major incidents in China around those topics that now the population is highly demanding. And at some stage, some part of the aging population will need to be cared for. And one interesting comment that was made by the latest global plan, I believe, last year was part of the fact that Chinese families, the consumer doesn't invest enough, is because there are no welfare systems in place, and so people save to prepare for the future. And so in my view, we would see innovation in those three worlds. I would say the sustainable world around ecology, around urban capacity, around all those millions of people migrating from the country to the cities, in the pharmaceutical and in the welfare and people caring for the future. I suspect a lot of that will come there.
So I thought you said there were three. Did I miss one? This about sustainability, pharma, in order to care for people in terms of healthcare. Was there a third one and I missed it?
Yeah, it's more the world of retirement. How do you finance an aging population who lives longer?
So you talked about the educational system being a really a good one. Now, my understanding of education at the younger ages in China is that it's still a rote system and does not produce the kind of critical thinking that we all think is so important for innovation. Is that not true? Does it turn out that as different as the lower grades education is, that it's working just fine?
Before I answer to your question, I want to come back to the caveat at the preamble. If you speak to a wealth management executive, he meets every day rich people, so he will have a tendency to speak to you about how rich people behave and so on. In my industry, I meet, I would say, the top of the crust. What is the more in demand technology, and it's more in demand worldwide. So I see the kids, the girls and boys, who attend the best schools, either in China and are of very good level, or abroad, in Singapore, in Princeton, in London, wherever. So the kids I see, the young people we speak with, because it's very important for us to onboard young people in order of well managing a pyramid of age. They are critical, they are demanding, they are very much driven and attracted by innovation. And by the way, if you yourself don't look like that, they're not interested in joining you. Right?
What was your last point? They are very much driven by innovation, and what was the last one?
And if we, as a company, as a corporation, when we speak to them because we try to attract them, we do not appear as having put innovation and creativity at the center of our DNA, they do not join you. Today, in my trade, they have so many choices that they can afford the luxury to be demanding of what they want to work for.
So when you talk about they're being willing to speak up and demanding, now I think many Westerners have the picture that they view the Chinese as reluctant to speak up to authority, and they hear about people who are punished who take on the government. Is that really a Western idea that's not at all correct? Is there a lot of speaking up to authority, people voicing their opinions and putting pressure on the government where they think it should be placed?
First of all, the first part of your statement makes me think more about Japan than about China, and the weight of authority and the cultural respect for authority. Clearly, in China, authority is respected. This said, I rarely have discussion of the political part of it, but Chinese people make me think a little bit like the young Indian generation that we were meeting 10 or 15 years ago, who are demanding about where do you go, what is the vision of the enterprise, how do you position your corporation in the world of technology and so on. And one thing which is very interesting is to measure the level of attrition of people. You know, the level of attrition in China as an average is high, is mid to high 10, 13, 16, 17%. So you have to be authentic and clear when you express who you are, where you want to go, and they speak up. They don't remain mute if they don't agree.
That's very interesting. So, what about the increased pressure regarding privacy issues? You know, in the West, we're especially in the United States, we're just really concerned about our personal privacy, about data, and so on. Is there a difference in the view of privacy between China and the West?
The reason why I hesitate in the answer is that I never saw that as a topic. I never heard that as a topic of discussion. But I would go one step further. It looks like the house is in glass in China. In other words, if people are looking for privacy, it's not easy, and it's very interesting to see how public incidents being shot in the street or in a shop, for instance, suddenly can become a huge buzz on the network with millions of people looking at it. I would not associate in my mind China with privacy.
So you are highly optimistic, it sounds like, Luc, about China's future. Is the basis of your optimism it's that where it is moving in terms of technology? Is that what you would base it on, and the tremendous sense of ambition on the part of the young?
Okay, first by nature, I'm optimistic, but I mean, you know, speak to people who have known China 25 years ago, 20 years, 15 years. I mean, the speed, the pace is simply amazing. I was speaking to you about Shenzhen 25 years ago. I think Shenzhen was something like 30,000 people. We're speaking about 7 million people today. You go to a city like Chengdu, who is about not far from 30 million people, which was probably less than a million or two 25 years ago. So things go fast, and in a lot of directions, of which innovation and technology. The pace is amazing.
So if that's where the optimistic piece of it lies, what will the major challenges be for China moving forward? What are the things that could get in the way of that kind of continued growth?
Again, as I said, I'm not a specialist or an analyst, but to answer to your question, I see different areas of risk. First, the rise of wealth is now to a point that where China used to have a competitive advantage in labor cost, that advantage is disappearing, especially when we look at the low end, the commodity of where labor is commodity, and you can see major shifts to factories now in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in other regions of the world of factories coming out of China. What the Western world suffered from in the past now happens in China. I don't know if you paid attention in the latest news, but for instance, there is layoffs even in banks of thousands of people. So one can see that China has risen in the value chain and is now experiencing the good, like the pace of where you are in the high value chain. So that's one area of concern. How can they remain productive in employment at the low end when they are not competitive anymore? Second area of concern, which is has been true for some time, pollution is less and less accepted by the population. And you can see that there are major efforts being led. This being said, there will be a lot of pressure there in the area of places like Beijing, for instance, or Shanghai. But what is the what are the authorities doing? I think a third area of concern is there is a growing attraction of those megapolis for people. In other words, I know that there is a plan around Beijing which could represent a megapolis of 135 million people at some stage by integrating three major cities of which Beijing. How do you manage in terms of urban capacity, in terms of transportation, in terms of being able to decentralize some basic administration for the needs of the people? How do you manage that? That's the kind of issues China will be facing. And then probably at some stage, I believe China would be facing what the Western world is facing today. When we see the impact of technology on enterprises, on usage, I've seen a lot of surveys. I think the latest one was on American labor, on US labor. It is more or less accepted that probably 45% to 50% of the present labor population is not capable to face those change of models and those changes of technology. And you know, some very simple example. Look at the people who work in the hotel industry. Look how they've been completely challenged by the hotel.com and Airbnb. You look at the taxi industry, but we see a lot of examples like that. There is something which is very funny, which is happening, which is in the real estate related to retail. In other words, one way to focus on the customer experience in the retail is the way you set up your shop, the experience you want to create in your shop, the decoration and so on. And what we see in a lot of this retail, the people go to the shop, let's say it's a shoe shop. I look at the brand I would like to buy, I try it to make sure that the size is good, take a picture of it, then I run away and I order it on internet. So one of the questions as well is, what about all these huge real estate that has been planned for retail? What is going to happen to that? First to the major retailers, but then to the real estate segment of the economy.
I think that is a big factor, and I've heard it from others. Are there other issues, Luc, that you'd like to mention regarding this East meets West issue? Anything that comes to mind that you think we should include?
Oh, there is, I would say, a geostrategic issue, and you see the tensions that exist in the South China Sea about who is the owner of what given island, and it is highly sensitive because we speak about one of the major world trade routes. So we can see the tension there, and what China has to learn is to how to manifest is a global power, but more as a soft power. So we can see that a lot of buzz here on how things happen. I don't personally feel that it is a threatening position. I don't see a major crisis, but clearly tension exists there.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it will be resolved, but there certainly has the world's attention on it right now. Well,
because of the trade route, Susan, you are speaking about 40% of global trade goes there.
40%? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, check the figures, but I'm ready to bet on that. So that's 40%.
Well, that is a big issue. So this has been terrific. Thank you, Luc. It's been really a delight to hear your perspectives.